Hi, everybody. Welcome to our next session of our winners interviews. We are very lucky today to be joined by Kat Peacock and Ben Toomey from ANZ. Ben and Kat delivered an initiative that took out our customer experience workforce transformation initiative of the year. That's quite a mouthful. In 2023 at our excellence program. Ben, Kat, thank you for joining me today. Number one, congratulations. We cannot wait to hear more about your initiative today. Can we start firstly with you guys introducing yourselves and giving us a little bit of an overview of the roles that you both play there at ANZ?
Absolutely, and thank you for that, Fran. We're very excited with our award win last year. My name's Kat Peacock, and I'm the capability lead here at ANZ, which means myself and my team look after everything learning and development related in terms of the capability of our staff in our customer contact centre. In terms of the award that we did, or the initiative that we took out, I was the project lead on that, the initiative lead, and really was responsible, I suppose, for driving the actions within it, but it was definitely a partnership with the actual business in terms of how we got to where we were. And on that note, I'll hand over to Ben for him to introduce himself.
Thanks, Kat. Hi, Fran. It's Ben Toomey. So I'm the lead for the Australian service stream within the ANZ Retail Contact Centre. So we provide frontline services, obviously, to ANZ customers across a range of portfolios, home loans, digital servicing, credit card servicing, and retail and internet banking services. So the Australian team consists of those four streams. We have a number of team members all based here in Melbourne. And my role is essentially managing that service, that contact center component, supporting all the team members within it, and clearly working with stakeholders and partners, as we deliver organisational and contact center specific projects through the service stream, because I think we all know, and certainly the audience knows, everything that any organisation does hits the service team. So a really big part of our role is managing change initiatives through the contact centre as well.
Fantastic. And yeah, I think you're definitely preaching to the converted there, Ben. Everything stops and finishes with the service team, regardless of where it starts. And I always remind organisations that contact centres don't generally generate their own work. They are doing work on behalf of an organisation that is more often than not initiated through some form or another from another part of the organisation. So it's great to see that ANZ is super invested in making sure the voice of contact centre and that service delivery area is really well heard across not just their initiatives, but equally in their strategy and design. So that's fantastic to hear. So if we think about the award you guys took out, like I said, big mouthful, but it was definitely focused on, we introduced the set of awards focused on customer experience last year. And for us, customer experience and the employee experience are actually, absolutely key and essential to giving great service to, regardless of what vertical you're in. Focusing on both of those things actually means you're, on track to continue to improve and enhance the services that you deliver. So the award that you guys actually took out, the Care Induction Redesign initiative, I think is what it was called. Can you tell me a little bit about what led to identifying that this was actually a need? So what was it in the environment that you were seeing that you thought, actually, we could improve this and we can work together to actually address, something? What was that problem in the environment that you thought we could get better?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. What kicked it off? It was really a case of, I suppose, post-COVID-19. We recognised that the customer contact centre was really in a different era, or the business looked very different. And primarily it was increased call volumes, and that was from a range of things like you know, the increase in sophisticated scams, you know, the instance of vulnerable customers, you know, and the reasons why they were needing to be in contact with us. Plus, I think too, there was a lot more of our customers were choosing to do more of their banking via phone than perhaps traditionally coming into branches. You know, people felt safe in their own homes, and kind of got into that habit of not having to leave the house for everything. So our core values were definitely driven, would say, by those three main drivers, but, you know, obviously a range of different reasons. But coupled with that as well, we're noticing like high banker attrition. So, you know, over this time, I think it was something not unique to us. It was definitely within the broader contact centre, but needing to address we have banker attrition, especially in their first 6 months of employment with us, that we needed to look at and really go why. But we also had to do it in a way to address, you know, our customer needs. We had a lot more customer calls coming through, so we needed to make sure that whatever we did to, you know, retain staff or attract staff first, retain them, have them trained up to be able to, you know, serve our customers. We had to really look at not just a band-aid fix, you know, to get, you know, we could have just gone out and hired more people and, you know, put them through our training program, but we didn't want to then keep having that same issue appear. So it was really just a case of having a look at it and going, well, what can we do? What is possible? Which, you know, did require a bit more deep dive to really make sure that we understood what was the problem, you know, rather than just thinking we think it's this and working on it, that root cause. So us from a capability team, you know, came to the business and said, you know, this is what we'd like to do. We could recruit and train more people. However, how about we do this to potentially solve for a bigger issue? And that's where we needed that buy-in, you know, from the leadership team within the contact centre, and then engaging with Ben and his team to make sure, you know, what we were coming up with, what we wanted to trial, was stuff that made sense to them as well, because it's their business and we were there to support them in this journey.
So, look, I think I love how you call out there, though, that you really needed to get underneath the problem. Quite often, we have a very insular view and we think we know what's actually driving some of the challenges. And you nailed it when you talked about some of the challenges the industry, and obviously we're not isolated. There's a lot of organisations that are facing challenges with not only attraction, but definitely retention. And that 6-month mark is actually really common. I heard some very frightening statistics a couple of weeks ago around the tenure of some team leaders in some big organisations, and the fact that they are seeing such churn meant, you know, it's not just an impact on the customer experience because people have been there a shorter amount of time, so their speed to competency isn't yet where they would love it to be as far as the expertise. But the challenge then when your team leaders and the next level start to actually also move on, and suddenly you're putting people into leadership roles that aren't necessarily ready or equipped to actually step into those roles either. So it is definitely an organisational challenge that you're talking about. But I love that you took such a partnership approach with the business to really say, you know, again, we can keep recruiting, but recruiting isn't actually going to solve your problem, particularly if they keep leaving. So it's great to see that was about thinking more broadly about the problem and looking at different ways to solve it. So if you think about your approach to this, and I guess, you know, it's not always easy. It's not always smooth sailing when it comes to rolling out some sort of initiative that's focused on making changes. You know, you're probably in a bit of a sweet spot in that if it's about induction, in theory, they're new people that are coming in. So, you know, potentially the loss factor or letting go of how you used to do things isn't as high. But to still get that buy-in, sometimes that comes with some challenges around, you know, change that's happening. Can you share any challenges that you experienced in any sort of stage of, you know, sort of the development of this as an initiative?
Yeah, really good question, because it was a case of not just redoing, you know, induction, if you like, or just the training program. As part of our deep dive, we look at, you know, how do we support the bankers when they're in their embedding phase? right through to, you know, the whole first 6 months in their role. So that certainly goes past training. We looked at, you know, how calls were routed, what support models were in place, you know, the interactions with the team leaders and senior management in the early days. So that did require a lot of stakeholder engagement across the business. As you said, it wasn't just, you know, our team and facilitators, for instance. So I suppose some of the challenges there were around getting buy-in from other teams. You know, appreciate that everyone has their own streams of work to be working on. So while it was a priority for us, wasn't necessarily a priority for some of the other teams that we were working on. So it was a case of working through with them, you know, like the benefits that would arrive from it, and getting their buy-in basically to see that, like, while it's a priority for us, and granted you have other things that you're working on as well, how the work overall can solve problems or make things better, make efficiencies for all of our work. And it was really important around that was the you know, sharing data, sharing insights so they can see why, you know, we were addressing the problem, but then really keeping that communication clear, you know, that clarity piece, so that, you know, when all of us, so a wide group of stakeholders were working together on it, that communication was really key to make sure that we were all on the same page, all working, you know, towards similar timeframes, etc., to pull it together, basically.
So you picked up a really important point there, and Ben, if I think about your role, and obviously if this is about, you know, beyond when people first start, it's, you know, it might be that people are shifting roles, so they need that extra support, but suddenly your leaders need to almost be performing, whether it's a completely different role or not is one thing, but actually they need to change up some of what they're doing. If they're leading teams that are part of this, if they're you know, sort of their investment and their buy-in into the program needed to be really solid for this to be successful. So how did you ensure your group of staff, so your leadership group, as well as the people that would be part of, you know, sort of the end users of this, how did you manage the buy-in and the connection to the end game? You know, how did you get them into it?
Yeah, I think with any good change program, the first thing you always have to focus on is, you know, what's in it for me. I think everyone in the audience would recognise that. So for the leadership team, really, you know, this whole initiative was about increasing the knowledge around products and processes, and I guess one of the fears of the leadership group was this, you know, ongoing requirement to be an SME, when really that's not their role. You know, as a team leader or a people leader, you know, I think being really clear with people that your role is really around 4 things, you know, motivating, challenging, inspiring, and developing, right? And keep your remit in that space. So really working with the leadership group about reassuring them, you know, of that focus, and then allowing them a little bit of freedom to play in those 4 areas, you know, as people came through and after the training. And I think at the banker level, again, you know, what's the benefit of this training and how it's operating, and what's the long-term benefit for you? You know, and again, that's, you know, broader exposure products, which basically means your development opportunities increase. You're not isolated into a particular portfolio. A lot of this, you know, big part of this initiative was actually, you know, Kat talked about it earlier, you know, the calls were coming in that were quite different. You know, we'd used to go down the product route of training, and we had to sort of deviate a little bit, and broaden that kind of product knowledge, because there were kind of really similar components. So, for example, digital servicing, you have credit card fraud, you have fraud online, there's all sorts of elements. So really looking at the training from a different perspective rather than product orientated, a little bit more around process orientated. And then obviously, you know, off the back of that, from the team perspective, you know, we had people contributing to the content and reviewing the content as we and the changes proposed as we went along. So you know, really comes back to a really high level of engagement, and seeking opinions, and then off the back of that validating what we were doing along the way with the people that it was impacting most.
Yeah, that's such a strong process as far as buy-in, building that buy-in through strong engagement, strong communication, and giving people the opportunity to actually plug in. So that participating through feedback or testing or any of those components, it's amazing how powerful that is when an end user feels they've actually contributed to the solution. Not to
Indeed, Fran.
mention,
And one of the things I just sort of, sorry to interrupt, but just jump in, you mentioned this is a big change. And I think one of the things, we're really committed to here is really understanding really strong change methodology. We use the ADCAR methodology. We really put a lot of commitment and time into really building that desire and all the activities that sit underneath that. So I think that commitment to that methodology, is something that can help you build the right plans so that you're hitting the right touch points at the right time.
Could not agree more. It's amazing the number of organisations. In fact, I was speaking to somebody yesterday and they were talking about an initiative that they had rolled out, and they were reflecting on not spending enough time in designing the right change management approach. They have a framework that they follow, but actually, sometimes it can slip into that tick and flip kind of activity.
Sounds like my morning, Fran.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It stops it being, unless you take the time to really be disciplined and quite deliberate in the actions that you build out within that change plan, it might as well just be something that sits in a drawer, but can see real value if you do it properly.
Yeah, for me, that I think that's the one thing that people really underestimate is actually thinking through your change plan before you and what that looks like and all your various touch points, and particularly, in that front end, building that awareness and the desire, a really powerful component makes the tail end go a hell of a lot smoothly. So that's probably the one thing I'd really advocate really strongly. Build your plans, spend your time. If it takes a little extra time up front, it's well worth it in the end.
No, I definitely agree with you.
Find that with this one here when Ben comments there about spending the extra time up front, and even if it takes you longer, because initially I think we were behind schedule, if you like, because when we planned out what this would take, what we underestimated was that time spent engaging our stakeholders and getting them on board with it. But instead of thinking we're behind schedule, let's move on, it was a deliberate, no, we can't move forward until we have that buy-in and that commitment, because we can't get the success that we're looking for out of this project without everyone being on board. So from that point there that we did, hold ourselves back and go, no, we've got to spend more time in this stage. And that's where, yes, it did take longer, but we did get that buy-in. And as Ben said, it does just make the rest of it flow a lot smoother, so we could get these outcomes that we got in the end.
Really, really refreshing. And I think it's really important for people to take on board. I hear of so many instances where people feel that their job is to meet the deadline, as opposed to really hold an influence that actually maybe that deadline isn't quite right. So I think that's really an important message. So thanks, guys. So if you think about the customer experience, which is kind of where we started with this, you were looking for ways to, enhance that, improve it, continue to actually ensure it was at the focus for the organisation. The program itself, obviously it was well supported from both of your areas. So this partnership approach, obviously was incredibly successful. How did you go about gaining support from others in the organisation? Because obviously you are not islands. You also work with a whole lot of other parts of, the ANZ machine, really. How did you make sure there was support more broadly as far as other leaders going and other parts of the business that potentially could impact or be impacted by what it was you were attempting to do?
I think a really big part of that, fortuitously, if you've got a financial benefit, it makes it a hell of a lot easier, Fran. So let's not, let's not hide, behind
Yeah.
things like that as well. This initiative did bring, a financial benefit. Kat talked earlier, about attrition. It's a really expensive cost to go back out and recruit time and time again and replace. The program, which was really quite lengthy prior to this review, and the speed to competency, and being able to really tighten that up and bring that in, brings a cost benefit. So that's always really, really handy. And again, you just got to make sure the right people know about it.
Yeah.
Which will get you the support that you need. So I think that's probably the big point to call out. Again, do all your homework, have all your plans ready, understand all the benefits. A big part of your change plan also includes, selling that story as well to get the attention that the project deserves. So I would say that was a really big part of it as well. Kat?
100% agree there, Ben. And I like what you mentioned earlier was like the what's in it for me. If you're going to ask someone to work with you or, devote energy or resources to something that you're working on, and they need to be able to see that there is not just a benefit to the business, but something that's going to help them with their work. So whether it be, as you said, the recruiting side of the business, it could have been workforce planning, the cool routing team, etc. So yeah, it's definitely addressing that what's in it for me makes it a lot more attractive to others to partner with you, to come on board.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I know, again, it goes back to that conversation about the planning and the upfront investment, really understanding the stakeholders and recognizing there's ROI for all of them. So how do you articulate that and build that right narrative? So yeah, great advice. So what difference has this made for employees, for your staff? What's changed for them?
Firstly, for starters, I've had almost zero attrition at
Wow.
all since we rolled out this new program. In fact, I can actually factually say zero attrition through the induction program. Absolutely nothing.
That's a
Yeah.
huge result. That is a huge result in the current climate, but also particularly you've already talked about, what your environment was doing. So the indicators were there. So that's incredibly impressive.
So to highlight just how impressive that was, we were sitting at 43% attrition at the 6-month mark. So basically,
that's fantastic.
One in two were leaving in that first 6 months, and we're just over 18 months now, Ben. And as you said, zero in our business, which is huge flow-on effects for the rest of the business.
Yeah. It also
Absolutely.
speaks to your so again, this is a set of things come together within your initiative, right? So there's different levers that you've made really strong adjustments to, but it also speaks really highly of the leadership investment. Ben, I know you talked about that before, but again, for those sorts of results, it means all of those things need to play nicely in the sort of park, and for it to come together like that, that's an incredible achievement. So congratulations on that.
And
Thank
Ben,
you.
if you don't mind, I'd love it if you shared part of the culture that you've built in your team, especially that Friday of week 1 outing.
Yeah, so we've also built into the program. We do a volunteer day as part of this. Again, just Fran, really trying to connect what we're trying to do every day with a broader community impact as well. We spend a lot of time in the classroom through the training, so just the ability to break it up and connect it to something more valuable, important, like the community, and putting ourselves out. What does service look like? A lot of the programs focus very heavily on process, procedure, compliance. I think it's really important to balance that out, with a really strong people component. So as Kat said, week 1, we've introduced a welcome lunch through that program. So the whole leadership group of the contact center comes together on that first Friday to welcome all the new starters. So there's a lot of, just warmth and friendly interaction. If you have a work conversation, you're actually escorted off the premises. So that welcome lunch is really important. Week 3, on the third Friday, again, we go out to St. Vinny's and do a full day. We've been partnering with St. Vincent since the commencement of this redesign. That was part of the redesign to connect with them and provide that support to their organisation and give our team members that experience. So that's a really big part of it as well. Kat mentioned earlier a variety of huddles and check-ins throughout the program. Look, and Kat touched on it earlier, we tried a couple of things remotely through COVID. That didn't really quite work for us. So I guess getting a greater commitment to the office presence, and that was a little challenge too, going back to your earlier question, following COVID, getting people back and comfortable interacting face to face again was a little bit of a challenge. And this program required, a lot of, in-person interaction. So I think that was a really big part of it as well. So yeah, the attrition, we mentioned, speed to competency, quite frankly, was probably halved. So people were actually getting to a really productive BAU state about 100% quicker. Essentially, it might take sort of 12 months before someone was really at that really productive, efficient level. We're seeing that now well under the 6-month mark. So there were just a couple of things, off the back of that, that we made a really strong commitment to.
Love it. And I love how you've really entwined the people component there. And, if you think about the different demographics that you're recruiting and attracting, there are different things that matter to them. But I don't know anyone that wouldn't want to be part of a team that gets to go and actually do something that is about giving back. I know that, it brings a warm and fuzzy, but it's really a hats off to you and the team for actually having that happen. But equally, more broadly, that you've got that sort of support from ANZ. I think that's fantastic. I love conceptually the opportunity to build in some sort of give back to community. I think that's fantastic. So well done.
Thanks, Fran. And I think it's that balance actually of, like we said, the process, procedure, the compliance with the human side. I really, I think I speak on behalf of Kath. I think that was the real power in this program, and this program's success is, I think we got that balance pretty right.
Certainly sounds like it.
Absolutely. I think, a tagline, I think, we invented or started throwing around, throughout this project was, ANZ has its vision and its purpose, and it's all around, helping our communities and our people thrive and to improve the financial well-being and sustainability of our customers. But what we carried on from there is, how do we achieve this? Well, we achieve this through the skills, the knowledge, the energy, and the care our bankers show in every conversation they have with our customers. So there's definitely the getting the actionable items right, like the policies, the procedures, a lot of compliance, as you can imagine, in banking and any contact center role. But at the end of the day, there's people. Customers are people, and they're calling us for that connection and to help solve something for them. So it was like that, the both sides of it. And when you look at our metrics, we hit metrics with people. The training time frame went from 13-week program to an 8-week program. So we saved time there, but that was without cutting out any of the important stuff. It was about reimagining, what are we doing in the classroom, introduce new types of, digital learning aspects, e-learns, making it more exciting, different ways for them to retain the language. That time to proficiency, was down to like 3 or 4 months, down from almost a year to hit those BAU targets, and attrition from 43%. I mean, we were hoping for 20, And we're told at the time, like, because we set out with what we were projecting to get, and 20 was our aim. If we could get a 20% attrition down from 43, we'd be really happy. And in fact, Ben, at the time, we were told, it's quite aspirational, is the feedback we received. And to get it down, after like the first 6 groups we piloted this with, it was 2%. And now we're tracking at 0. So we hit those people elements, but translated, what does that do for our customers? And it's things like average handling time, dropped the whole time. So even when they're on a call, people were more proficient, so they weren't needing to seek out flagging support or anything like that. So, it was more efficient for our customers. Transfers between departments by cleaning up some of those call routing issues. Customers weren't transferred from one department to another. Our bankers were able to finish or complete that call. And despite all of this, our breach rates remained unchanged. They were really low. So, it was very important to us to make sure we kept and tracked data for everything. And there's a benefit of being in a contact centre as opposed to other areas of ANZ. We've got data on everything in a contact centre, don't we? There's nothing we can't track. So what we did, though, is, we didn't want to reduce training, but only to find that breach rates went up or customer complaints went up, So it was really important for us to track those breach internal measures, but also our NPS increased tenfold over this time as well. So it was really important for us to continuously track those different elements to make sure we weren't making a change somewhere only to blow something up over here.
Yeah, definitely important. And if you think about, more broadly, the opportunity to see those sorts of results and be monitoring them very closely, I can imagine, because there would have been a lot of eyes on any of those differences. I love, Kat, though, that you talked about reimagining how you did things, as opposed to, so many times we see people just want to shave a few days off training or a few weeks, or, let's just cut that AHT down. Actually, you need to do it in a way that actually that happens as a result of the steps that you take, as opposed to that's the action we're after. So again, it goes back to root cause, right? What is it that drives it up? That's what we address. But far too often we see people say, well, we just need to shave. If we could save 2 days off training, that's an ROI of X. So they cut things out without doing that reimagining. And suddenly they wonder why their compliance or their breach rates change. So I love that you've really looked at this from such a holistic sort of lens across all of those elements. Ben, I think you've certainly got the balance right with those 4 components you continue to focus on throughout. Were there any unexpected outcomes? Were there things that, obviously the stats were greater than you expected, which is, phenomenal. So I bet there's a whole lot of people saying, well done internally. Were there things that you didn't expect at all that came about? And Ben, probably I'd love to hear a little bit more about the changing culture, because it sounds like you've had some incredible wins as far as, even having a period where all of the leadership come together, not to talk about work, but to get to know your people. That must have such a big impact on your culture. So I'd love to know if there are any things that you personally didn't expect or didn't build into your plan that have been great to see.
God, look, that's an interesting question, because I guess I'd be selling myself short by saying I didn't, you got to think of all the expectations. But probably I think one of the outcomes that really jumps out at me, not that it was unexpected for me, but it might have been unexpected for others. The value of having a really strong, really well designed and interactive training program, getting the subsequent results probably resulted in a lot of people having an extra look at the talent that we have in the contact center, which is a great thing. Over the last 12 months, I've probably doubled the number of team members that have had opportunities available to them to go off into other roles, which I think is sensational. And I probably did expect that, in some ways, but probably just didn't expect the volume of that, and how both wonderful and frustrating that was for me.
Yeah.
There's nothing I love more than developing people and seeing people. I frequently look back at my LinkedIn and, the 10,000 people you've worked with, and half of them are CEOs of different things now. And you go, I remember when you were 18, and joining the business. So, seeing people move on, that's fantastic. But that was probably a little unexpected. The volume of people who were hitting their results early and obviously getting to a competent level a lot quicker. And as a result, getting really strong results, both metrically and from the customer, made them attractive to other areas of the contact center and the bank. Which increased people's opportunity for development. We moved on an enormous amount of people over the last 12 months into other roles around the organization. And whilst that's fantastic, it probably was a little unexpected. I've spent more time in assessment centres than I had probably planned for 2024.
It is such a positive result, though. I know
it's massively positive. And I want to, reiterate that as much there's a little bit of pain for me, but the opportunities that it created have been fantastic. Some amazing stories.
Fantastic. So if you think about what's changed as a result of the initiative, is there anything else you're seeing now within the environment? Maybe it's, the what's next, what next you're going to focus on? Does this open up some different opportunities? But are there any things that, again, have sort of emerged as potential next steps for you guys?
I was going to say, I think for me, first up, I think what it's done is created an appetite for learning in the contact center from the team members. I think in the past, there was probably a level of comfort to just kind of, let's sit back and let things happen. I think now there's probably a higher expectation and desire to just want to evolve and learn to create those development opportunities. So I think that's probably a little bit of change I've seen. There's a greater desire to be involved in training because of the benefits, whereas maybe in the past there was a bit of resistance, for upskilling or cross-training. I think that resistance, I think that has actually gone the complete other way. Now there's more pressure. Okay, when can I go in and do the next bit of training, the next big thing? Hold your horses. We only came out of your last induction on Monday. So that's probably the one thing that's jumped out at me. Kat, over to you.
Awesome. Good problem to have there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I suppose for me, there's two components to this in terms of what's changed and what's next. It's the results were obviously communicated internally. So that definitely got other people interested in, what could we be doing in our areas to, replicate this sort of work. But a personal favourite for mine is, being a capability department, is that we are not necessarily just a cost centre. We can add value to your business. And that was really important for me in tracking this data and kind of putting a benefit or a number to everything that we did, so we could highlight that this effort actually resulted in a benefit, as opposed to just, thinking that we're a nice to have or a cost centre for the business. But specifically then being nominated by the contact centre for this award, and then the exposure the awards process gave for us, was really just highlighting to us then that other organisations are facing very similar, to us. This award has really provided me the opportunity to have people reach out and say, hey, I'd love to learn more about what you did. Or, you know what, we're facing the same problem. How did you overcome X? And I think that's one thing about this association, is I think everyone is really willing to give their time to other people. So I've been happy to chat to those people that have reached out to me. But likewise, it's given me an opportunity to go and, hey, what are you doing? Or can you, show me what you're doing with regards to this? And I think it's creating a really good collaborative effort, and we're not seeing as competitors, if you like. We're all contact center industry, but we're all facing very similar things. So it's those introductions and connections we're making has definitely been excellent. So that's what's changed for me, and what's next I think is more of the same, similar project, but focusing the change on another area of
different focus. But I think you're right, Kat. There is such a community of practice that is available to us, right? And we're not competitors. Actually, regardless of industry, you can learn from each other. So I think it's, for me, probably we've seen a real increase in that in probably the last 12 months particularly. And, it was definitely what drove us to actually do these interviews. We had so many people say to us, what did they do? What was different about what ANZ have been doing, and how can we learn more about that? So, I think it's such a great opportunity to recognise that sometimes you can just spark a bit of interest in someone else that's doing something, or they're about to embark on, something similar, and there is such value in being able to reach out and have a chat. And really sort of, talk through, well, Ben, can you tell me more about this disciplined approach to, really building out your plan and your change management and, the whole design, and then actually go into how did you rethink and reimagine, sort of your learning products and the rest of it. So there is such opportunity for people. So whilst you say you've had a few reach out to you, Kat, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few more. So
and I welcome it. I will do. Thanks, Fran.
No, it's awesome. I've heard a lot from you both today, and for me, actually, what really shines through is, how committed you both were as leaders to this. If you reflect on process, again, it's been a while now, what are you most proud of?
I think for me, and if I can speak on behalf of Kat for a minute, I think we actually both genuinely believed that this was the right thing to do. So I'm kind of just really proud of trusting my instincts, that this was the right way to go and the right thing to do. So that firstly, and I think I'm just also really proud that this initiative not only brought that business benefit and that return on investment, but that it created a lot of opportunities for a lot of people individually, and really proud of that. I keep going back to my passion for making sure people, really feel that they're part of something important, and to get that recognition and the development opportunities that come with that. That's something I'm really proud of.
Love that. What about you,
Kat?
Yeah, very similar to Ben. The partnership and what we've been able to create and believing in it. Like, I think we're both so passionate about this piece. And I mentioned earlier about, the initial stages took longer than we expected, but that's because we were passionate and we didn't want it to fall apart, halfway through. We needed that. So very proud of us and everyone that partnered with us, because it's definitely a joint effort, for the success that we got, but really, really happy of how we've been able to turn things around for our bankers, our own on-phone bankers. They've got a tough gig, and I think anyone working in a contact centre will say that our on-phone staff have got it the hardest. We ask so much of them. So being able to make an improvement, in their work and improve their engagement, I think is a huge win. Because off the back of that, then we've seen those results translate for our customers. That customer experience has benefited. They're not waiting as long for their call to be answered. They're not waiting, the call duration isn't as long because our customers are busy too. They don't need to spend all day on the phone to us. So it's all of those efficiencies which then coming out in our employee NPS, but as well as our customer NPS. So I just feel like, all the hard work that Ben and I and everyone else put into this was worth it, because we got those results, really positive outcomes.
Oh, definitely. If you could give one piece of advice for someone or another organisation starting out on this journey, what would it be?
I'm a data person. So get your data points. They're your facts. So definitely your data your facts, prove what you're looking for and what you think it can achieve.
And I'm the opposite. I'm a people person, and I say trust your instincts.
So I say you're the perfect pair to have actually partnered on this, because there is no people story if you can't get support, and get the support you need data, and you need the buy-in from the people to actually utilize and reach those benefits. So congratulations to both of you. I have loved hearing not just about the program, more in depth about the program, but equally, to hear the way you speak about it and the way it reflects, I guess, your core values, aligning with people, really creating value. Ben, I love how you talk about the opportunities that this has then actually opened up for your people to then progress and create wonderful career pathways. So I love the passion that you bring to it, and I really, really thank you for talking to me today about it. And I can't wait to see what's next. I can't wait to ask you what your attrition rate is in 6 months' time, Ben. I think it's an amazing program, and I think that there will be quite a few people that hear this and think, how can I speak to these guys? Because we need to, start thinking differently about this more broadly, not just at ANZ, but certainly you've done some remarkable things. So well done, and thank you. And I think you should both be really proud of what you've done. So well done.
Thanks so much, Fran. It's been a great opportunity.